From the world's tallest peaks to a mountain that boasts the highest wind speed ever recorded, here are 7 of the most dangerous mountains in the world. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to They Will Kill You. Hit the like button and request any topics you'd like to learn about in the comments section below. Number 7. Half Dome. Each year, around 50,000 hikers visit the Half Dome at Yosemite National Park. The mountain's massive popularity also comes with a measure of tragedy, as at least 60 people have lost their lives while trying to climb it. The final ascent to the bald granite's 8,844-foot summit is strenuous and features several hundred feet of nearly vertical climb. Hikers are assisted by steel cables bolted into the rocks. Yet, despite this, accidents can occur. One such incident took place in 2011 when a 26-year-old woman slipped on the wet rock, lost her grip on the cables, and fell 600 feet to her death. The Half Dome is also known as a major point of lightning activity, and there are cases of people who are killed after being struck by lightning. Even before climbing the bald giant, there are plenty of dangers awaiting those who choose the mist trail as the first leg of their hike. There are 2 waterfalls along the trail, making it slippery and increasing the risk of a deadly fall. Among the deaths of 2011, there were also 3 hikers who ignored the guardrail and fell in the waterfall. Number 6. Kangchenjunga. Zsolt Eross, Hungary's most successful high-altitude climber, was a skilled mountaineer who summited 10 of the world's 14 peaks that measure over 26,000 feet. After suffering an accident in the Tatra Mountains, his left leg was amputated below the knee. Still, Eross continued to summit the world's tallest peaks with a prosthetic leg. He was no stranger to the challenges that a mountain could pose and relied on his extensive experience to overcome them. However, in May 2013, Eross, his 26-year-old climbing partner, Peter Kiss, and 3 other climbers disappeared on the descent after reaching the top of Kangchenjunga. Their bodies were never found, and nobody knows what happened to them. Such are the dangers of Kanchenjunga, the world's 3rd tallest mountain, situated along the border that separates Nepal and India. The mountain is notorious for its highly unpredictable weather patterns, extremely cold temperatures, and frequent avalanches. Statistically, for every 5 climbers that make the summit, 1 will die on the mountain. Number 5. Nanga Parbat. In climbing circles, Nanga Parbat is known as Man-Eater or Killer Mountain. It's one of the planet's most technically difficult mountains and home to the Rupal Face. Measuring around 15,000 feet, the Rupal Face is the largest and most intimidating rock wall on Earth. Historically, Nanga Parbat has lived up to its notorious reputation. 10 climbers lost their lives in the Nanga Parbat disaster of 1934, which, at the time, was considered the worst mountaineering tragedy in history. The expedition was led by mountaineer Will Merkel, and it was funded by the Nazi government in Germany. A severe storm forced the climbers to retreat to safety, but one by one, the lives of 6 Sherpas and 3 Germans, including the expedition's leader, were claimed by Nanga Parbat. They died from altitude sickness, exhaustion, or exposure to the elements. Only 1 member of the 1934 expedition, Sherpa An Searing, made it back alive. He battled through the storm for 7 days on his way down. The book and subsequent movie, 7 Years in Tibet, is based on alpinist Heinrich Harre's 1939 expedition to Nanga Parbat and the events that followed. Under Hitler's regime, Harre was sent to the mountain to search for new ways to make the ascent via the northwestern face. As World War II broke out, Harre was detained by the British in India. He escaped, and his wanderings across the Tibetan plateau became the subject of the book. Number 4. Mount Everest. For many people who are passionate about climbing, Mount Everest represents the supreme objective. It's the highest mountain in the world and the crown jewel of the Himalayas. with a summit that measures a little over 29,000 feet. That's close to the cruising altitude of a commercial airplane. Needless to say, climbing the world's montagne superlative comes with a few risks. 1977 was the last year without known deaths on Everest, and at least 290 people have perished trying to conquer the mountains since the expeditions have begun. Death can come in any number of ways, and the frozen bodies that still lie on the mountain serve as a stern reminder. Simply losing one's footing can lead to a fatal fall, not to mention the added danger of avalanches, rockfalls, or blizzards. The area above 26,000 feet is known as the death zone, and even with supplementary oxygen, the body can't survive there for too long. The high altitude can cause pulmonary and cerebral edemas, in which the respective organs swell up with fluids. Some become so compelled to reach the summit that they begin to disregard all the implied risks, a state known as summit fever. Climbers may also face frostbite, snow blindness, or hypothermia. Despite all these dangers, Everest remains the most sought-after mountain in the world, and for most climbers, the culmination of a lifelong dream. Number 3. K2. K2 is named by British surveyor T.G. Montgomery, as it was the second peak to be recorded in Karakoram mountain range. However, those that are brave enough to take on the mountain eventually come to know it by a different name. When asked about his attempt to summit K2, famous American climber George Bell said, "It's a savage mountain that tries to kill you." K2 has since been nicknamed the Savage Mountain in honor of Bell. Located on the border between China and Pakistan, it's among the mountains with the highest death-to-summit ratios, with around 300 successful summits and 77 fatalities. Even though it's second to Everest when it comes to height, peaking at 28,251 feet, K2 has been described as a mountaineer's mountain due to the extreme difficulty of ascent. Whereas hundreds of climbers may reach the top of Mount Everest annually, K2 has often gone several years without anyone reaching its summit. In fact, because of its great height, precipitous overhangs, and almost unbroken slopes of rock and ice, K2 was long considered unclimbable. As if the conditions aren't treacherous enough, the mountain is also prone to frequent and severe storms. It's so challenging that it has never been climbed in the winter, with most climbers opting for July and August to make their attempts. The worst mountaineering disaster to take place on the mountain occurred on August 1st, 2008. The details regarding a series of incidents are still unclear and involve to some extent an avalanche that destroyed many of the climbers' ropes. 11 people from international expeditions lost their lives. Number 2. Annapurna. At first glance, some may consider Annapurna to be more approachable than the other mountains that peak over 26,000 feet. It was, after all, the first of them to be summited in 1950 by Frenchmen Maurice Herzog and Louis Lacanau. Also, when it comes to sheer height, it's only the 10th tallest mountain in the world. Yet, a closer look at statistics would arguably establish Annapurna as the deadliest mountain in the world. A report from 2012 states that out of the 191 climbers that ascended Annapurna, 61 lost their lives. That means that around 1 in 3 climbers will die attempting to make it up and down the mountain. It's the least summited mountain of all the mountains over 26,000 feet, and its south face ascent is often regarded as the world's most difficult climb. One of the deadliest trekking disasters in the history of Nepal took place in October 2014. That's when avalanches and snowstorms struck Annapurna and the surrounding areas, killing at least 43 people. Number 1. Mount Washington. Around 150 climbers have lost their lives on New Hampshire's Mount Washington since 1849. It's widely considered to be the most dangerous small mountain in the world, with a height of 6,288 feet at its peak. Mount Washington is situated at the intersection of 3 major storm tracks. What this means is that whenever bad weather comes from the northeast, it can collide with storms already in effect on the mountain. This leads to violent, unpredictable weather and temperatures that may be lower than those in Antarctica, especially when taking wind chill into account. The mountain's west channels feature a funnel-like topography, which compresses the air current as it approaches the summit. This leads to notoriously strong winds that can basically mow down climbers or swipe them off the mountain. Mount Washington boasts the highest wind speed ever recorded by a surface-level weather station at 231 miles per hour. It's the type of wind speed that would have scientists argue the need for a Class 6 hurricane. Climbers whose lives were claimed by the mountain met their end due to hypothermia, falling avalanches, or falling ice. Even though the tallest of the White Mountains has a reputation for being deadly, it still draws in numerous visitors each year as it's located just a short drive away from both Boston and New York. Even though the dangers are known, there are still some visitors who show up unprepared. There are close to 200 rescues performed annually, but from time to time, an unfortunate few fall victim to the unforgiving mountain.